Hello and welcome back again to BPS. I hope you all are doing fine and you all are preparing for your APSC mains. And since all of you know that currently at this time when you're watching this video, the budget presentation is actually going on and we have to study about the budget and the economic survey in detail because there are certain numbers and there are certain highlights which is very essential for you to know since you all are going to appear for the APSC main. So this can be a very good substantiative points for you to add while you are writing any question which is related to the economics. Okay, so what do we have here? So we are going to analyze the key numbers which are related to the economic survey. Okay, key numbers as in the percentage and the ratios and stuffs like that, because these numbers are very essential for you to write it in your exam so that you can substantiate your answers with certain relevant points. We are going to see what is a GDP, then we are also going to analyze the employment, the state of the employment of this country at this point, then what is the ratio of the export, what is the condition of the export of India, and then there are other stuffs like we are also going to analyze about the climate change and its impact. Okay, so first of all we must understand who prepares the economic survey, who does it. So this is a very simple thing, very simple question. I hope all of you know. The economic survey is prepared by Economic Division of the Department of Economic Affairs in the Ministry of Finance, and it is formulated under the supervision of the Chief Economic Advisor. So here there may be a simple question if let's say there may be a simple question which might come in your mains, and then you might need to answer it in the form of an introduction about giving the economic survey. So there you can mention the Chief Economic Advisor's name. Okay, who is the current Chief Economic Advisor. So you need to mention these kind of points. Okay, so next we are going to see what does the economic survey include. The economic survey give insights into the state of the economy and various other indicators. Indicators means what is the GDP of this country, at what point do we stand, how much are we developing. So there are certain indicators, employment indicators, social sector, exports, imports and stuff like that. So these give us the state of the economy of this country. The document also offers some outlook of the current year. Now how is this composed? The economic survey has two parts. The first part, which includes the country's economic development and the challenges, like where do we stand at this point of time. Okay, and then it offers an overall review on the economy, and the second part is focused on the past financial year. That means we are given a data to compare, like means last year these were the data, this was the GDP growth rate of India, and this year we have this number. So the numbers from the last financial year to this financial year, when we calculate, we get the exact we get the roadmap of the development. We get how far the economy is performing. So these data from the last financial years are given for us to make a comparison. Now GDP growth, let's see what the economic survey says about the GDP growth. Now India's real GDP grew by 8.2% in this year, exceeding the 8% mark, okay, which is stated by the economic survey 2024. Now what did the 8% mark means? Because the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, they give a certain indicators, and one indicator is the GDP growth. So according to the international forums, the country, in order to make progress, it should at least have the 7% mark of the growth of the GDP, of the real GDP. But India is exceedingly good in the number, because it is going more, it is performing better than the expected ratio. So it is at a point of 8% mark. Now India's real GDP growth in financial year 2024 and 25 is predicted to be between 6.5% and 7%. So real GDP will be between 6.5 and 7. Now, India's economy has recovered and expanded in a controlled manner since the pandemic. Since we all know that pandemic got a big blow on the rest of the economies of this country, but surprisingly, India's economy has been performing way better than the rest of the developed countries. Now, real GDP was 20% higher than the 2020 level, a feat achieved only by few major economies. Now, few major economies here in this context, it is referred to the major developed countries because their economic speaks that they always make very good achievement in terms of the real GDP mark. But this year, India's record is like it is 20% higher than the 2020 level. Okay. Then the outlook for continued strong growth beyond financial year looks good amid geopolitical, financial markets and climate risks. Now this is a point where I am not quite agreeing with the government here, because see, first of all, we are losing our neighbors. We are losing our neighbors means we are losing a potential market for our goods, for our exports and stuff like that. So when we are losing our neighbors and stuff like that, we are having a big we are taking a big pressure in terms of exporting our materials and in terms of importing cheap products from our neighboring countries. Now only Bangladesh and Bhutan is left of being the good neighbors of India, but Bhutan also can't be very reliable for a long time, and Bangladesh also, since Hasina's government is pro-India, that is why we have a good relation with Bangladesh. If the government changes, we don't know where the trajectory will go. Apart from the GDP estimates, other indicators tracking the performance of economy point towards growth resilience. Resilience means it is maintaining the same pace, it is not going down. So leading indicators suggest an upturn in global economic activity. Okay, next on the employment landscape, we can see employment. As you all know, there has been recent incidents where stampede has happened because lot of students, they went to search for jobs. So since employment rate has increased to at least 9.2% in this financial year, so we know that what employment landscapes we can see in the economic survey. Now India's per capita income has grown more than 7 times since 1990. So it has grown more times, that is 7 times since 1990, but it should have grown even more. Economic survey has projected India's per capita income to reach 14.9 lakh by 2047. Now in terms of employment status, 57.3% of the total workforce is self-employed. Okay, self-employed means they are doing business, they are doing entrepreneurship, or they are doing in small term works. They are not employed in any offices or government office, but they are all self-employed. Let's say someone is chai wala, someone is doing this, someone is pakode wala. So those are things, those are informal sectors where they are working, where they have been self-employed. And 18.3% work are unpaid workers. Unpaid workers means, for example, they are they can be agricultural laborers, and but they are only recruited, or they are only taken as a laborer only for a seasonal term. So these are people who are not paid on a regular basis. So there is 18.3%, which is really a big number. Now comparison to 57.3%, you might say that 18.3% is very less, but in terms of that, if you see that 18.3% people, if they are unpaid workers, that means it states a very deplorable state of the employment in India. Now state-wise, the top 6 states in terms of number of factories were also the greatest creators of factory employment. Now who are these 6 states? You can say 40% of the factory employment were generated in states like Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Maharashtra. So these are the 3 states that is generating more and more factory employment. Okay, in 2021 and 22, factories employing less than 100 people constituted 79.2% of all factories, while contributing only 22.1% of total persons employed and 20.9% of workers. This has been improving over time as there is visible trends towards a rise. So there is a very dicey numbers that is given here. So they are not properly telling that how much of a growth that has become, but still they are giving certain statistics or certain numbers for us to compare since the year you can say 2020 to 2021 to 22. Now they have said that there is a considerable increase in the number of visible upward trend, but what the trend is, how good the trend is, or the numbers for comparison has been very dicey. So we don't know how good that number is. Okay, but still we know that 40% of the factory employment is being generated by these 3 states, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Maharashtra. Now, employment landscape, the yearly net payroll additions to the EPFO more than double from 61 lakhs to 131.5 lakhs. EPFO, that means people who has been registered for, who are all government employees. And then this addition actually speaks about the state of employment, that it has really improved to a bit, because earlier it was only 61.1 lakh which was pay additions, which is payroll addition in the EPFO. But now from the financial year 2018 to the year 2024, it has increased to 131.5 lakhs. Now, CEA has said that PLI schemes have gained momentum in the past years and have garnered an investment of rupees 1.28 crore. As a result, 8.5 lakh employment opportunities are generated. Okay. Now, the 10 most popular states collectively impose 139 prohibitions on women from participating in factory process such as electroplating, petroleum generations and manufacturing of products such as pesticides, glass, rechargeable batteries, etc. So, there are more than 10 states which collectively impose ban on recruiting women in these factories, because these factories seems to be very hazardous in the in terms of labor standards. For example, say glass making factory, pesticides making, rechargeable batteries and stuff. So there are prohibitions on these 10 states, a total of, let's say, 139 total prohibitions on women from participating in these factories. So this also is a very dicey situation, because majority of this of the factories, they do produce or they do manufacture pesticides, or they do produce glass or make these rechargeable batteries, which are very health hazardous, because these factories don't follow any health hygiene, they don't follow any kind of a regulatory standard. So it affects the overall life, it affects the overall health of women, and especially women who are subjected to pregnancy and stuffs like that. So since there is prohibition on recruitment of women in these kind of factories, so we see a very lopsided recruitment in terms of men and women in terms of factories. Now, financial year 2023-24, rural wages rose above 5% every month. On average, nominal wage rates in agriculture grew by 7.4 for men and 7.7 for women, benefiting from robust agriculture growth. So, but the agriculture sector has seen a much more rise in terms of employment generation, specifically for women, because as you can see, the nominal wage rate has increased for women more than men. So for women it has increased from 7.7%, and for men it has increased to 7.4% from 5%. Okay, so this has been a tremendous growth in terms of the agriculture, but this is basically a nominal growth. So they have just given the nominal number, they have not given the real one. Now, price and inflation, you can see India successfully managed to keep retail inflation at 5.4%, the lowest level since the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this is also something now there are people who might differ on this, but since the COVID-19, the inflation rate has been at 5.4%. Now, RBI, they somewhere give a threshold that inflation should be at this point, because somewhere it maintains the liquidity in the market. But the government has somehow managed to control the inflation at this point, because 5.4% maintaining an inflation rate is a very it's a very congratulatory thing, because if it rises more than 6%, or if it reaches, let's say, 8% also, then it is going to have a big impact on the economy. Now, on financial year 2022-23 and 23-24, the agriculture sector was affected by extreme weather events, lower reservoir level, damaged crops that adversely affected the output and the food prices. So now the food inflation that has risen is mainly because of the climate change, because a lot of agriculture fields has been damaged. And now, since in the market, as you all know, that the tomato prices have risen. Now there are memes which have come up. Why? Because the tomato harvest has been largely affected by the climate change, because there was no water and most of the fields, they completely dried out, and then most of the farmers they are not in a position to take subsidies from the government or from the other local cooperatives or stuffs like that. So that is why the tomato prices have risen a lot, and mainly the food prices have risen because of the climate change impact. So nonetheless, whatever we do, we may regulate the liquidity in the market, but the same thing we also have to remember that most of the food inflation that occurs is because of the impact of the climate change. So this is something which is also reflected in the economic survey. So food inflation based on consumer food price index increased from 3.8% in 2021 to 6.6% and further to 7.5% in the 2023 to 24. So this is a consumer food price index. So this has increased from the year 2020 to the year 2024. So from 3.8% it has risen to 7.5%. So this has become a major issue in terms of the consumer inflation. Why? Because of the change in the climate change and because of the impact on the agriculture. Now RBI increased the repo rate gradually by 250 basis points since to rein in its inflationary pressure. Now I am not so I might take a class on this, the economics of the repo rate and stuffs like that, but I guess all of you know what a repo rate means and how RBI regulates the inflation by the repo rate. Now on the external sector, so basically it's the import and the export. The trade openness indicator, which rose from 37.5 in 2004 to 5 to 45 in the year 2023, has contributed significantly to economic growth as it facilitated an efficient allocation of resource through comparative advantage. So trade openness, that means even though India does not have a very congratulatory sort of the trade openness or in terms of the ease of doing business and stuff like that, but still we have a lot of regulation in terms of export and import, because first of all in terms of import we do have to set standards because we need to protect our indigenous people also. We need to protect our indigenous industries also. But in terms of export also, we have seen that there are a lot of regulatory measurements that we have to follow with the other countries as well. So this is the reason why we need to maintain good relation with our neighbors, because neighbors, they will encourage the import and export within the countries, and then it is also going to have a very good impact in terms of the economic pressure, because since we are having a problem with China. So one by one all the neighbors of India are actually moving away from India, because since India and China both are on a contested space and India is not able to retain its influence in the South Asia or the Southeast Asian region because of its contest with China, and also because of its damaged relation with Pakistan. Now see, India's share of global goods export was 1.8% in 23-24 against an average of 1.7 during 2016 to 20. So exports has not risen on a tremendous scale. So from 2016 to 20 we have seen the average growth was calculated at 1.7%, but it has only increased to 1.8%. So only 0.1% has increased. So that is not a very tremendous achievement that we can say, but still nonetheless we can see some sort of progress. Now similarly, its share in global service export rose to 4% from 2022 from an average of 3.3 during 16 to 2020. So for the global exports, whatever thing we are exporting on a global scale, for example we are exporting our food items basically to the other countries. So since we are also exporting cosmetic products to the other countries. So this kind of export has only increased, let's say nominally, from 3.3% to only 4%. Accordingly, the share of India's service exports in world service exports has risen remarkably from 0.5 from 93 to 4.3% in 2022. So only service sector has given a large number of exports, because we know India provides many service sectors. So in the year 1990s we only had a few industries, but service industries, but now it has risen. Now India is also having lot of unicorns and stuffs like that because of a startup ecosystems and stuff like that. So from 1993 it was only at a cost of 0.5%, but now we are exporting service at the rate of 4.3%. So this is something a very tremendous achievement that we had been able to do, but still I think we need more improvement in this sector. Now India is now the 7th largest service exporting country globally, with phenomenal rise from its 24th position in 2001. Now in the year 2001 we were at the 24th position. 24th most exporting country, but now we are standing at the 7th exporting country. So this is a big achievement, but still I think we need a lot more improvement, because since nominally we have only on few sectors we had only risen only 0%, but in terms of service sector we have had a lot of great achievements. Now, India ranks second in the world in telecommunication, computer and information service exports, sixth in personal, cultural and recreational service export, eighth in other business service exports, 10th in transport service export and 14th in the travel service exports. So we have seen top 10, we have retained the top 10 position in most of these, because we have achieved the second position in terms of telecommunication. Okay, because telecommunication means, for example, geo and stuffs like that. So we are exporting this telecommunication, then computer and information definitely, because these are the kind of things. Then we have sixth in personal, cultural and recreational. Okay, then we have 8th position in terms of business service export and 10th position in terms of transport and 14 in terms of travel service exports. So we have more or less we are able to retain the top 10 position in most of these. Now India's current account deficit narrowed to 23.2 billion US dollar in financial year 23 to 24 from USD 67 billion during the previous year. So previous year we had a trade deficit we had an account deficit of almost 67 billion, but now we have reached a trade of a account deficit of only 23.2 billion. And why we have reached that deficit? Because now we are able to export more and more. Earlier we used to have a large pressure on our economy because of a more and more import based economy, but now since we know that our current account deficit has lowered from the last year it was only 67 billion, but now it has decreased to almost 23.2 billion, which speaks a volume about the rate of exports of India. When we are going to export more and more, we are going to bring more dollars into our country, but if we are importing more and more, we are going to spend more dollars from our economy. So this is the basic just principle. Next we have industry MSME sector. As per the latest report, the share of MSMEs in all India manufacturing output during the year financial 2021 to 22 was 35.4%. So in the financial year 22 it was 35, which is in the MSME sector in terms of the manufacturing output. That means when we are doing small manufacturing firms. The Udyan registration portal launched in July 20 has been instrumental in formalizing MSMEs by providing simple online and free registration process based on self-declaration. So earlier, since we didn't have that ease of doing business here, because once you start opening your own business, you will have to go through a lot of regulatory procedure and lot of administrative red tapeism. But since the Udyan registration, since everything has become online, so everything has become very fast forward. It has become really easy for anybody to start opening an MSME, because ultimately it is not the large industries, it is the MSME industries that is the backbone of our economy. As of 5th July, 4.69 crore MSMEs are registered on the Udyan registration portal, including informal micro enterprise registered on the Udyan Assist portal. So on the 5th of July, so this is a recent data, we have 4.69 crores of MSME that have registered in the Udyan registration. So this is also a very good thing for us to celebrate. But we have seen that more number of informal micro enterprise registered on the Udyan SS portal. Okay, these are not formal but informal. Now climate change and the energy transition, what do we have? India has made significant progress on climate action. The installed solar power capacity increased by 15.3 gigawatt, reaching a cumulative total of 82.64 gigawatt on 30th April 2024. Since we are targeting to have more number of villages and people come under this renewable energy source, we are trying to transit from the carbon intensive. We are trying to make a transition from a carbon intensive economy to renewable energy. So since this progress is very commendable, because from 15.3 gigawatt because in the year 2024 we have made an additional increase of 15.3 gigawatt, which has taken to the total number to 82.64 gigawatt. The Ministry of Power notified the regulations on the carbon credit trading scheme, also called the Indian carbon market. So on the carbon credit trading scheme, so you must prepare something on this, because this is a very good question for essay writing, maybe on the climate change. So you can write something on the carbon credit trading scheme, because now we can buy and sell the carbon. Okay, we can save money, we can earn money more and more, while not using more and more carbon based energies. Now India has achieved the target of 40% of India's installed energy generations through non-fossil fuel sources. So we have almost reached at the target of 40% of using the non-fossil fuel source. What are non-fossils? For example, the solar energy, the wind energy, and thermal energy. These are all non-fossil. That means these are renewable sources, not non-renewable. Okay, they will be going on forever and ever as long as the earth exists. Okay, so 40% we have reached the target base, which is also very commendable, but we must reach a target of 100%. Okay, but now 9 years ahead of its target of 2030. So we had made a projection that we are going to reach at the rate of 40% in the year 2030, but we are actually 9 years ahead of the target, and we have already achieved, let's say, 40% of its target since in the year 2024. So this is a big achievement, and I hope this numbers make sense to you at this point, and these are the certain numbers which you must include in your answer writing, because they are going to give the essence of a real intelligent aspirant, who somebody knows his environment, what is going on and what is not going on. So these are things which you must include, and those who are preparing for self-study, do follow us, because we also encourage self-study, because we believe that it is ultimately you who make the best of the efforts. Okay, so do follow us for more, and if you have any questions, you can write down in the comment section, and we'll meet again with another session. Till then, take care and all the best.